72 hours. That's how long experts say a human body can survive beneath tons of concrete and twisted steel without water. Without light, without hope. The sun was setting over what used to be Riverside Heights, now reduced to mountains of rubble and silence. Search and rescue teams had been working around the clock since the 7.8 magnitude earthquake tore through the region. But even the most optimistic among them knew the window was closing. For every hour that passed, the chances of finding survivors dropped exponentially. Marcus Reed stood at the edge of the debris field, his weathered hands gripping the harness of Atlas, a 4-year-old German shepherd with intelligent amber eyes that seemed to see beyond what humans could comprehend. Marcus had been working search and rescue for 12 years, and Atlas had been his partner for 3. Together, they had pulled 17 people from disaster zones across 3 continents. But this one was different. The scale of devastation was unlike anything Marcus had witnessed. Entire apartment complexes had pancaked into themselves, reducing 12-story buildings to 3-story tombs. Section 7 is clear, Captain Torres announced over the radio, his voice heavy with exhaustion and barely concealed defeat. Moving teams to Section 8. We've got maybe 6 more hours of daylight. Marcus looked down at Atlas. The dog hadn't moved. His ears were pinned forward, his body rigid with focus. Staring at a particular section of collapsed Building C, it was a section the team had already marked as low priority. Too unstable, too compressed, the structural engineers had said. Even if someone had survived the initial collapse, the aftershocks would have finished the job. "Come on, boy," Marcus said gently, tugging the leash. "We need to move." Atlas didn't budge. Instead, he did something Marcus had never seen in 3 years of partnership. The dog sat down deliberately, raised his right front paw, and began tapping it against the ground. Not randomly. Not anxiously. It was rhythmic, measured. Tap-tap, pause, tap-tap, pause. Marcus's blood ran cold. He dropped to one knee, placing his hand on the rubble where Atlas was focused. He counted. The taps came every 1.2 seconds. He pulled out his watch, timing them precisely. 72 taps per minute. A human heartbeat. "Torres," Marcus spoke into his radio, his voice tight with urgency. "I need a team at Building C Eastern Section. Coordinates Delta 7. Static crackled. "Reed, that sector's been cleared." "Structural says it's a death trap. We don't have time to—" "I don't care what Structural says," Marcus interrupted, something he'd never done before. "Atlas is alerting. He's not just alerting, he's syncing with something. Someone's down there." There was a long pause. Marcus could almost hear the internal debate happening on the other end. Time was everything. Resources were limited. Every minute spent on a cleared section was a minute taken from areas with higher probability. "You've got 30 minutes, Torres finally said. "But if we hit unstable ground, we pull out. No exceptions." 29 minutes ago, in the suffocating darkness beneath what used to be her bedroom, 8-year-old Mia Chen had made a decision. She would count. Her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, had taught them about staying calm during emergencies. "Your brain needs a job," she'd said during the earthquake drill that now felt like a lifetime ago. "Give it something to focus on." So Mia counted. She couldn't move. A section of her dresser pinned her legs, but strangely there was no pain anymore. Just cold. Just dark. Just the sound of her own breathing in the tiny pocket of air that had somehow formed around her. She counted her breaths, in 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4. She counted the seconds between the distant sounds of machinery. She counted the memories she could still access. Her mother's face. The taste of her 9th birthday cake that she would never have. The feeling of grass under her bare feet. But mostly, she counted her heartbeats. If she could feel her heart beating, she was still alive. That's what mattered. Thump, 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 thump. She'd been counting for what felt like forever when she heard something new. Not machinery. Not the settling of debris. It was something else. A scratching sound. Getting closer. The rescue team arrived at Delta 7 within 8 minutes. Marcus had never seen them move so fast, but he suspected it wasn't enthusiasm. It was the desire to prove him wrong quickly and move on to areas with real potential. "Thermal's got nothing," said Jenkins, the team's technical specialist, staring at his handheld scanner. "No heat signatures. No movement. Red, I think your dog might be..." Atlas's taps became more insistent. Faster. His whole body was trembling now. Not with fear, but with desperate urgency. He barked once, sharp and commanding, then returned to his rhythmic tapping. Marcus had seen Atlas alert to survivors before. The dog would bark, scratch at the ground, circle the area. Standard trained behavior. But this was different. This was communication. Listen to the rhythm, Marcus said quietly. The team fell silent. In the settling dusk, they could all hear it now. The methodical tap-tap-tap of Atlas's paw against concrete. It's too regular, Torres said, but his voice had lost its certainty. That's not normal dog behavior. No, Marcus agreed. It's not. He's telling us something. He's telling us there's a heartbeat down there, and he's showing us the rate. That's impossible, Jenkins said, but even he didn't sound convinced anymore. Marcus turned to Torres. Give me 20 more minutes. If we find nothing, I'll personally buy the team dinner for the next month. But if I'm right... Torres looked at Atlas, then at Marcus, then at the rubble. He pulled out his radio. All teams converge on Delta 7. We're going in. The excavation began with agonizing slowness. Every piece of concrete, every twisted rebar had to be carefully assessed and removed. One wrong move could trigger a secondary collapse. Marcus stayed close to Atlas, who remained locked in his position, his paw never stopping its steady rhythm. We're at 12 feet, called out Richardson, one of the dig team supervisors. Concrete's getting denser. We're going to need the hydraulic lifts. How long? Torres asked. 40 minutes. Maybe more. Marcus felt his stomach drop. They'd already used 18 of their 30 minutes. He looked at Atlas. The dog's breathing had become heavier, more labored. The constant alerting was draining him, but he refused to stop. We don't have 40 minutes, Marcus said. Look at him. He's exhausted, but he won't quit. Whatever he's sensing down there, it's fading. Torres made a decision. Hand tools only. Form a chain. We dig manually. What happened next would later be described by Captain Torres as the most intense 22 minutes of his career. 12 rescue workers formed a human chain, passing debris piece by piece from the hole they were creating in Building C's collapsed eastern wall. Marcus stayed at the edge with Atlas, monitoring the dog's behavior. At minute 19, Atlas's tapping slowed. Marcus's heart sank. At minute 20, it stopped altogether. No, Marcus whispered. No, buddy, stay with it. Stay with me. But Atlas didn't resume tapping. Instead, he did something even more unusual. He lowered himself to the ground, pressed his ear against the concrete, and whimpered. A soft, mournful sound that made every person in that chain stop and look. She's dying, Marcus said, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. He can hear it. Her heart's slowing down. 16 feet, Richardson called out. I see fabric. Blue fabric. The team erupted into controlled chaos. Movements became faster, more urgent, but still precise. No room for error. Not now. 18 feet. I've got an arm. Female, juvenile, she's cold. Very cold. Marcus couldn't breathe. Atlas stood up, took 3 steps closer to the hole, and sat down again, waiting, watching. We need medical. Torres was already calling it in. Prepare for critical hypothermia. Possible crush injuries. Ada to surface, 3 minutes. But Marcus wasn't listening anymore. He was watching Atlas. The dog's ears were forward, his eyes fixed on the hole, and then Marcus saw it. The slightest movement. The very tip of Atlas's tail. Not quite a wag. Just a twitch. Hope. When they finally brought Mia Chen to the surface, she looked like a ghost. Her skin was gray, her lips blue, her eyes closed. She wasn't moving. For a terrible moment, everyone thought they were too late. Then one of the paramedics pressed a stethoscope to her chest. His eyes widened. I've got a pulse. Weak, but it's there. 70 beats per minute. 72, Marcus thought, remembering Atlas's taps. The dog had been off by just 2 beats per minute. After 3 days. Through 18 feet of concrete and steel. As the medical team worked to stabilize Mia, Marcus finally allowed himself to collapse. He sat in the dirt, and Atlas immediately came to him, pressing his body against Marcus's chest. The dog was shaking, completely exhausted, but his tail was wagging now. Properly wagging. You knew, Marcus whispered into Atlas's fur. You knew she was there. You knew she was alive. How did you know, boy? Atlas didn't answer. He just leaned harder into Marcus, seeking the comfort of physical contact after the most intense work of his life. Captain Torres approached, his face streaked with dust and something that might have been tears. Reed, I owe you an apology. And that dog just rewrote everything I thought I knew about search and rescue. Marcus looked up. Is she going to make it? Medics say it's touch and go. Severe dehydration, hypothermia, possible internal injuries. But she's breathing on her own. That's something... Torres paused. They're calling it a miracle. 72 hours exactly. The absolute limit of human survival. 5 minutes later and... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The hospital waiting room was too bright, too clean, too normal for what Marcus was feeling. He sat in an uncomfortable plastic chair, Atlas curled up at his feet. Technically, dogs weren't allowed in the hospital. No one had the heart to enforce that rule tonight. Sarah Chen arrived at midnight, having driven 12 hours from the city where she'd been on business when the earthquake hit. The moment Marcus saw her, he recognized the expression. He'd seen it on the faces of other families he'd helped. The desperate hope mixed with paralyzing fear. Are you the one who found her? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus stood. Not me. Him. He gestured to Atlas. Sarah looked down at the German shepherd, who had raised his head at her approach. For a long moment, woman and dog simply looked at each other. Then Sarah did something that surprised Marcus. She knelt down, wrapped her arms around Atlas's neck, and sobbed. Atlas didn't pull away. He stayed perfectly still, accepting her grief and gratitude with the same quiet dignity he'd shown during the entire rescue operation. Thank you, Sarah whispered into his fur. Thank you for not giving up on her. A doctor emerged from the ICU. Mrs. Chun? Your daughter's stable. She's sedated, but you can see her now. Sarah stood, wiping her eyes. She looked at Marcus. Will you come? Both of you? I think she'd want to meet him when she wakes up. They made an exception to the ICU rules that night. Marcus and Atlas followed Sarah into Mia's room. The little girl was almost invisible among the tubes and monitors, but her chest was rising and falling with steady breaths. The heart monitor beeped with reassuring regularity. 72 beats per minute. Atlas walked slowly to the bedside, as if understanding the fragility of the moment. He sniffed gently at Mia's hand, which lay pale against the white sheets. And then something remarkable happened. Mia's fingers twitched. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. She looked at her mother, at Marcus, and then her gaze found Atlas. For just a second, there was recognition in her eyes. The dog, she whispered, her voice like dry leaves. I heard tapping. Thought I was dreaming. Marcus felt something break open in his chest. You heard him? Through all that concrete? Mia's eyes were already closing again, exhaustion pulling her back under. But she managed one more whisper. Kept counting. With him, knew someone was coming. In the weeks that followed, Mia's recovery became international news. The little girl who survived 72 hours beneath the rubble. The miracle at Riverside Heights. The unbreakable will to live. But among search and rescue professionals, another story circulated. The story of Atlas, the German shepherd who had sensed a heartbeat through 18 feet of debris, who had found a way to communicate that information to his handler, who had refused to give up even when every logical indicator said there was no hope. Marcus received requests from around the world. Universities wanted to study Atlas. Training facilities wanted to understand his methods. News programs wanted interviews. He declined them all. Atlas isn't a spectacle, he told Captain Torres one morning as they prepared for another shift. The earthquake recovery was ongoing, though now the focus had shifted from rescue to recovery. He's a working dog doing what he was trained to do. The fact that he went beyond that training, that's between him and whatever instincts or intelligence drove him that day. Torres nodded. Fair enough, but Reed, I'm putting you two on every active rescue from now on. I don't care if it's a car accident or a collapsed mine. If there's even a chance someone's alive and trapped, I want Atlas's nose on it. Marcus looked down at his partner, who was already wearing his work harness, tail wagging slightly in anticipation of the day ahead. You hear that, boy? You're officially irreplaceable. Atlas barked once, sharp and confident. Ready to work. 3 months later, Mia Chen was released from the hospital. She still had months of physical therapy ahead, but doctors said her recovery was nothing short of miraculous. The day she came home, she had one request. She wanted to see Atlas. The reunion took place in Sarah Chun's temporary apartment. The original family home was gone, reduced to nothing in the earthquake. But they were alive. They were together. And that was everything. When Marcus and Atlas arrived, Mia was waiting by the window. The moment she saw the German Shepherd, her face transformed. Marcus had never seen a smile that bright. Atlas, she said, as if testing out the name. That's what they told me. Atlas, like the one who holds up the world. She knelt down, moving carefully because her legs were still healing, and Atlas approached her slowly. He sniffed her hand, her face, and then very gently he licked her cheek. Mia laughed. It was the first time Sarah had heard her daughter laugh since before the earthquake. I counted with you, Mia told the dog seriously, as if having a conversation with a person who could understand every word. When I heard your tapping, I counted with my heartbeat. I thought if I could match you, if I could stay with you, I wouldn't be alone anymore. Marcus felt his throat tighten. He'd never quite understood the connection before. But now it made sense. Atlas hadn't just found Mia. He'd communicated with her. Through tons of concrete and steel across the boundary between human and animal, they had found a rhythm together. A shared heartbeat that kept them both fighting when everything said to give up. Sarah invited them to stay for lunch. Over sandwiches and juice boxes, Mia told them everything she remembered. The initial shaking, the terror of the collapse, the darkness and the cold. And then, after what felt like forever, the tapping. I thought it was my imagination at first, she said, nibbling on her sandwich. Or maybe a ghost. But it was too regular. Too real, so I tapped back. With my fingers against the metal thing that was pressing on my chest. I don't know if it made any sound. But in my head, we were talking to each other. Atlas was lying at her feet now, completely relaxed. Every few minutes, Mia would reach down and touch his fur, as if reassuring herself that he was real. The doctor said you saved my life, she continued, looking at Marcus now. But I don't think it was just that. I think Atlas saved something else too. He saved me from being alone. Even when I couldn't see him or touch him, I knew he was there. I knew someone was coming. That evening, as Marcus and Atlas prepared to leave, Mia hugged the dog one more time. Will I see you again? She asked. Marcus smiled. Anytime you want. We're not going anywhere. As they walked back to Marcus's truck, the sun was setting over the city. Most of the rubble had been cleared now. Reconstruction was beginning. Life somehow was moving forward. You did good, boy, Marcus said, scratching behind Atlas's ears. You did really good. Atlas looked up at him with those intelligent amber eyes. And Marcus could have sworn the dog understood every word. They drove home in comfortable silence, the setting sun painting everything in shades of gold and amber. Somewhere across the city, Mia Chen was falling asleep in her own bed for the first time in months. Her mother sitting beside her, a small stuffed German Shepherd dog clutched in her arms, and in the quiet rhythm of the city rebuilding itself, in the steady beat of hearts that refused to stop. The bond between a rescue dog and the little girl he saved continued to pulse with life, 72 beats per minute. The rhythm of survival. The rhythm of hope. The rhythm that Atlas had heard through 18 feet of concrete and never let go.